Hi ladies and welcome back to my channel. Today we're gonna talk about online dating, finding rich men online, how to get a rich man to take you out on a date. Because ladies, we don't have time to waste, okay? Time flies. We gotta, get our stuff done. I'm just gonna tell you exactly what I do, my tips and tricks. And honestly, these are basics and a lot of you I've noticed don't even know half of them or even over half of them. So that's kind of surprising, but hopefully from this video you're gonna learn, you're gonna take notes and just go out there and start dating. Obviously online dating can be dangerous. I'm gonna tell you exactly what I do to make sure that I'm 100% safe. And yeah, let's just get to it. If you follow me on Instagram, I said do not do online dating, but that's only during the corona times. If where you live you can finally start going out to restaurants, I suggest doing online dating. Finding rich men online can be a little difficult. It is always, in my opinion, much better to do it in person, go out to rich areas and have them, approach you that way, which I think I'm going to make another video about how to make them approach you. But let's just talk about online because it is possible to find them online. I found rich men online. Other women have found rich men online. It is possible. It's just, it involves a lot of digging through the trash until you find gold. So the first one, and I hope that this is the most obvious one, it's your pictures. They have to look expensive. You have to look good. You have to literally look like $1 million, okay? If you're gonna be, like, men in general are just visual creatures. Whatever you write in your bio doesn't matter. You can even leave it blank, okay? I personally don't write anything in it, but I will tell you what to write in it if you really need to. Or maybe for another video, I don't know. But first, let's just get into the basics, okay? So your picture, you have to show off that you're wearing nice clothes. I mean, it doesn't have to be brand name clothes. You could just wear like skirts, dresses, heels, makeup done, hair done, like your hair looks good. Maybe even put in like pictures where you're kind of like expensive areas, expensive. Like it just looks good. The background looks good, okay? There's not like some trash can behind you. You don't look like you're in the hood, okay? Like actually make it look like you're in classier places. It doesn't have to be specifically a classy place as long as it just looks like it, okay? Because they don't care. They're not going to go and try to figure out where you are. They just want to see you look good, and that you look like you're somebody a man will spend money on, basically. If you're going to be posting pictures of you in sneakers, ripped jeans, I don't know, and like nothing's done, like you have no makeup, no, like your nails are not done or anything like that, he's going to be like, okay, she looks like the type of girl I can go for a walk with. And listen, honestly, these men will test you. Even if you look good, even if you look like $1 million, listen, a guy who doesn't have money will still try to hit you up because it's just so much easier online. And this is why I hate online, because it's just easy. Like he's just gonna be like, okay, most likely I'm gonna get a no, but what's the worst thing that's gonna happen? Worst case, she says no. So yes, guys will message you and they will, ask you to go for a walk. They will ask you to go for coffee. That is up to you to say yes or no. So again, make sure you look expensive. Try to be like more expensive areas or make that picture look expensive. You have to look like $1 million for a man to actually want to spend money on you. You cannot be looking like an average chick that he can easily find outside the street, okay? You actually have to look like it for him to be like, okay, this girl looks like the type of girl who will expect me to spend some money. Now, I don't know how old you are, but let's say you're 18 and over, hopefully. When you're on these online things, like don't go for guys in the early 20s. The chances of a guy who's like, I don't know, 20, 21 to like spoil you is super rare. It's possible. I remember when I was younger, I was going after guys. When I was like 20, I had a guy who was 21 and he provided for everything and he paid for everything, and we even lived together and he paid for everything. It's possible, but the chances are super, super slim, okay? And I didn't even meet him online, so the chances of you meeting someone like that is super slim, huge waste of time, and it's just, you're gonna be digging through the trash a lot. So I strongly suggest to just avoid them. I would personally say go for guys who are 27 and over. That's usually like the best type, but even then, usually guys in their 30s are just a lot better. It really depends on your age. Obviously, if you're in your 20s and now you're going for a guy who's in his early 30s, or even getting to his 30s, you're gonna have a better chance, is basically what I'm trying to say. But the older is always the better. I usually try to go 5 to 6 years older than me. That's like the best for me personally. It's possible to find a guy who's only a year or 2 years older who will spoil you, but it just depends on how much time you have to waste. That's my opinion. Like all the guys that I've found that were only like a year or 2 years older than me that actually spoiled me were guys that I've met through friends, mutual friends, or guys who approached me in person. I've never found a guy who was a year or 2 years older than me online who actually spoiled me. Like most of them were like mad childish. Like I just strongly suggest not to bother. The next thing is, how does he look? Okay, if he's extremely attractive, let it go, girl. Like, stop. I honestly don't understand what it is, this thing with like women. I've never been attracted to really attractive men. I'll be honest with you, I could pass by a guy with abs and big muscles easily at the beach. I wouldn't even look. You're nothing to me. Like, it's literally like dust. It's just, I don't understand why women are so into that. For me, a guy who focuses too much on his looks is just a huge turn off. Like, honey, go to work. That's literally all I need to see is I want you to go to work. That's it. So personally, I could care less if he's like super freaking tall. I could care less how good he looks or how muscular he is. I can understand the height thing. I understand why women would not want to be with a guy who's like shorter than them or even the same height. Okay, height, we can like let that go. It's possible to still find a guy who's much taller. But like looks wise, if he's too attractive, if he looks like a model, and if he's like, if you see his pictures and he's trying to like pose like women do, like he's trying to, like, you can tell. Okay, I wish you know what, when I got these photos, I should have looked for some examples. But when you look in there, you can tell when a guy is really trying hard to like show off. He's gonna be like showing off his abs. He's gonna show off his muscles. He's gonna pose like a feminine man. You can tell, because guys in general that are masculine, they're terrible at taking pictures. They take horrible pictures. They look like a sweaty caveman, whatever. Just look for a guy who looks decent. Honestly, if he looks average, he looks decent. That's the best one. What's next? I mean, technically, if he's older, let's say he's like 10 to 20 years older and he looks good, you can still get away with it because he's older. But if he's in the same age category, let's say he's like 2 years older, and he's very attractive, you're gonna waste time. Even if they're 20 years older, sometimes they just love dating so many women, and then you're just gonna deal with so much competition, and who has time for that? Girl, honestly, if he's super, super attractive, you know what I do if it actually works out is I keep them as a side guy. I'll go have fun, let him take me on dates, let him spoil me, yada yada, but we're not getting serious. Like, he's not someone I will take long term. And this also goes towards guys who are taken and married. I don't know who you guys watch, and honestly, I don't care what these other dating coaches, gurus tell you and how they're married to a married man. It's a huge waste of your time in general. Like, if he's going to cheat on his wife with you, he's going to cheat on you too, honey. I'm telling you right now, you're wasting your time. Don't be watching these YouTubers telling you, well, my husband, he cheated on his ex-wife, but now he's with me and he's not going to cheat on me. Trust me, he's cheating on her, or he's going to cheat on her eventually. I promise you. Married men, taken men are to be used. That's it. I personally am telling you, if you don't want to listen to me, go waste your time, then come back and cry to me. Actually, I wouldn't even take you back because I don't have time for that. But that was your warning, so do what you want with it. And what is he trying to show off? Because guys who have money usually don't even try that hard to show off. Like, I don't know. Americans kind of do. It really depends, but usually they don't try to go out of their way to show off like their cars and their yachts and all of that stuff, because a lot of men, especially the ones who want long term, they don't want to be used for those things, so they usually will not put those things out there. You get what I mean? So it's much better to judge him based off his job, which I'll talk soon about how to figure his job and money, yada yada, but usually try to see what he's trying to show off, because whatever pictures they're putting out there, it's what they're trying to show off. I've even seen guys who have like 50 women lined up beside them, like hugging him and stuff, and obviously he's trying to show off like he gets women, but he probably doesn't. And yeah, honestly, try to just be careful with who you choose, because there's so many catfishes on there. Like, this is the problem with online, is that it's hard to tell who has money, who doesn't. And this reminds me when I dated the guy that I just mentioned that was only a year older, and he provided for everything and paid for everything. I always told him, I was like, why won't you like your Instagram is just so basic. You have like no pictures showing off what you have. If you were to post like your car and everything, do you have any idea how many women would be in your DMs messaging you, trying to get with you? And I remember he replied to me something with like, what's the point of showing it off to the world? Like, I already know that I have it, which I never really understood. I thought I was like, okay, whatever, you're a weirdo. But like, it kind of makes sense. And that's what I mentioned before in my other videos, is whatever people post on their social media or online dating, wherever, like whatever is in the internet, that is what they're trying to show off to the world. And rich men in general don't feel that need to really show it off unless they're really like trying to attract the women. But usually, from my experience and from where I'm from, the guys who did post these things and tried to be super flashy with what they have usually don't have those things. Or they were like extreme players who like use those things specifically to lure a bunch of women. But usually the guys who were rich and actually like generous and kind and didn't play those games and didn't try to like, go around and cheat and all that stuff, which they do exist. They do. I don't care how many women say all guys cheat. It's not true. I've met very good men with a good heart who have money, who are hardworking, who don't post those things because they just don't want to be used for it. Like in general, men do want women to find something special about them. So you have to be careful with those ones that are trying to be flashy. Like usually they do it on purpose because they know that's what women want to see. And usually sometimes even like those cars that they post are just cars that were rented. So yeah. Another way to test them is usually what I do, and this works for me all the time, is adding in the food that I like in my bio. So I'd be like, obsessed with Italian food. Whenever they message me, they'll automatically be like, oh, let me take you to this Italian restaurant. And from there, I judge them. Like, is this going to be, like, let's say they said, okay, I'm going to take you to this Italian restaurant. Is it going to be, is the restaurant that they suggested you the Italian version, like a McDonald's version of the Italian food, basically? Like if you're putting out there that you like sushi, and they're like, I know this sushi place, let's go to this place, and it's the McDonald's version of sushi, it kind of shows off that he's cheap. So that's usually how I kind of weed them out. And honestly, even suggesting a more expensive place is usually not worth it. A guy can be rich, but still, like, he can be cheap too, you know what I mean? So those are the ones that you want to avoid. Like, you don't want to be with some guy who's rich, but he's going to be cheap and count like every single penny, and you can't even enjoy time with him because he's so cheap. I know plenty of those kind of guys too, so make sure that the place he takes you to is at least like up to your standard. And look, honestly, it really depends on what app you use. Like, I've met rich men on Tinder. I've met rich men on Bumble as well. So it is possible to find them there. There is, maybe you use Seeking Arrangement. I don't know, whatever app it is that you're using. If it's an app where a guy can message you first, then I suggest letting them just message you first. Do not ever message them first. But if it's Bumble, I'll tell you what I do. If it's Bumble and you have to message them first, and I know a lot of women are against messaging first, I am too. But I've met them on there. That is why I still use them. I say, hey, how are you, if we match? And I would put the smiley face. Usually they say, I'm great, how are you? And I'll be like, I'm great, thanks. And then I write, tell me about yourself. That's when they write to me like their introduction about themselves. And usually it's like a whole paragraph about their hobbies and what they do for a living. And if I like the introduction that they send me, usually I try to like eventually send them over to my social media so that I can figure out like what their first name and last name is. And that's the thing, is that on social media, when you're sending them over there, it's so hard to trust men from online, especially if you're trying to find them online on these online dating websites. So I strongly suggest changing your first name and last name to something similar. So it's different from your original first name and last name, but he can't find you on Google. That's like my biggest tip, and that's what I did for mine. And basically, when you guys finally get on social media and you see his first name and last name, try to find out, like, you can, just do your research, figure out, like, what he does for a living, who he's friends with. It will tell you everything. Like, all his pictures is everything. Like, the people he hangs out with, that's who he is. And that's for everyone. Like, whoever you hang out with, that's who you are. I'm sorry, but that's just the truth. So if all you hang out with is if you hang out with a bunch of bums, that's basically what you are. So I would look over his pictures. Like, if I see a bunch of partying pictures, I already know what he's into. And then from there, you just decide whether this guy is up to your standards or not. But I try to find out the first name and last name so I can finally, do my research on, where he works. And sometimes you can find even more information about, where he lives and stuff like that. But don't get creepy, okay? So that's how I judge on how much money he makes, is basically through his work, what he does for a living. And then hopefully from there, when you guys get on a date, he's actually generous and not some cheap guy. Also, try to avoid asking them what they do for a living. Try to figure that out for yourself, because usually if you ask right away, what do, And I know a lot of women are going to be like, well, I don't have time. And I understand. I don't have time either, but you're the one online dating. So you got to make time. You got to make time. There's nothing you can do. If you want to play more on the safe side, it's better to not ask them what they do for a living. Try to figure that out yourself. And the best way is by asking them, tell me about yourself. Usually from there, they will always tell you what they do for a living, okay? And if they don't, and you just really feel that he has the money, try to send him over to the social media, try to figure out his first and last name, and then do your research and see what you can find about him. Now, the next thing that I usually do, and obviously I'm not going to message them 24/7 the whole day, right? Like, you have a life and you have other people to message too. So when you talk to him, try to figure out more about him, try to get him to tell you more about his interests. And try to twist it and make it seem like you guys have a connection, like you guys have things in common. You don't have to over exaggerate it and be like, pretend like you're into things that you're completely not. Because if he starts telling you that he's into like climbing, and then you tell him, oh my gosh, I love climbing. I've been climbing since I was 8 years old. And then he takes you on a day for climbing and you can't even climb. Like, I'm sorry. Try to be a little more realistic and try to make him feel like, oh my gosh, I think like me and her might work out. Talking to men online is a little different and it's a little bit harder because when it's face to face, it's so much easier to make a connection. It is so much easier to get them to be obsessed with you. When it's online, because they don't see you, usually men will try to like, they just don't treat you the same way like as they would if they met you in person. So if possible, when you're talking to them online, try to really make it like seem like you're just really interested in what they have to say. You're really interested in them. Don't overdo it. And try to make them feel like you guys will have a connection. Be like, oh, like me and you, I feel like we'd get along, yada, yada. And then what I do after I try to get that connection and make him think like we have some things in common and I could be like a good match. I try to, after talking to him for 2 days, I would go cold. And then once I go cold, I will talk to him rarely, but I will tell him, hey, listen, I'm sorry. Like, I don't know, you got to make up some excuse. Like, you just tell him that you're rarely on the phone or maybe you're going on a break from your phone. That is usually, they will understand that's usually the cue of take me out on a date. They won't understand that you're the one trying to say it, but they will be like, okay, if I want to get to know her more, I'll have to take her on a date. He might ask for a phone call, whatever, but listen, I strongly suggest that before a date, it is actually better to do a phone call because sometimes you end up realizing that the conversation was really good online. And once you talk to them on the phone, they're like mad awkward. So I would suggest if you're talking to them on the phone and they're really awkward, think twice whether you want to go because, yeah, I don't know. It depends on what exactly is your goal. Like, are you trying to be a sugar baby? Are you trying to be a wife? Like, what is your goal? Because obviously if you want a guy who's long-term, this will be a waste of your time. And if you're just trying to be a sugar baby, then this could be good. Even if he's awkward, you'd be like, if I can get him to, spend money, who cares? So just know the goal and have a chat with him on the phone once, and try to make it a good conversation, but don't do it for long, okay? Don't be on there for an hour. Do it be like, yeah, I can talk for a few minutes, before I head to the grocery store, whatever, I don't know, make something up. And then have a good conversation and just put in your feminine voice. Like talk like you're like a woman, and basically just sound like you're so interested in what he has to say, and that's it. Basically, just talk like you're really interested, and that was terrible. I was not ready for this. I'm sorry. I'm like freestyling right now. But basically just sound feminine. You're super into what he has to say, and he's just so funny. And then after that one phone call, you just tell him like, I'm sorry, like I just don't have time for like to talk, yada yada. You can't spend too much time on the phone. I'm surprised that women are telling me they're talking to guys online for like 2 weeks. That's insane to me. 2 days is all you're getting, and then one phone call. After that, you're taking me on a date. So I will start thinking, it depends on who he is, but usually I will say, hey, I'm sorry, like usually I will start pushing it to we need to meet in person to continue this. So that's where it needs to be pushed. After that, like, I'm sorry, it's just wasting my time. So I strongly suggest 2 days is a conversation. It doesn't have to be 24/7 where you're messaging him every single time, but just try to create that idea for him that you guys will have a connection. If he wants a phone call, do a phone call. That's actually a good thing to do, a phone call before the date. The phone call should only be a few minutes. Tell him, yeah, I'm happy to do a phone call. I'm actually heading to the grocery store soon, so let's talk quickly, and while you're talking, you're super interested, and then you end the conversation by being like, okay, I gotta head now, yada yada. You finish the phone call, and then from there, he has to ask you on a date. If he doesn't, then you gotta push it for the date. You start telling him, like, listen, I can't talk to you forever, honey. But make it sound nice, okay? Make it still sound feminine and nice, and you're so kind. Be like, I really feel like we would get along. I don't know. Just add in that thing and push it to the date. If it's not pushing to the date, let it go. It's gonna be waste your time. Now, the one thing I strongly suggest not to do is going on drink dates, like especially alcohol. And I'm telling you based on like hearing what other men say, okay? Even if he's rich, yes, he might tell you, oh, let's go to this bar and have this drink and drink wine. I don't know. Don't do it. Don't do it. I'm telling you, yes, some people have decent experience and they have good experiences, but I strongly suggest to not go. Because usually what they try to do, and this is not for everyone, but most, they will try to get you comfortable. That's the whole point of getting you to drink alcohol, is to get you comfortable and then hopefully get laid afterwards. I strongly suggest not to do drinking, make up an excuse. If they say, oh, we can go out for like wine or something, what I say is, unfortunately I don't drink. Like, make it so nice. Like, oh, unfortunately I don't drink. And then from there, usually they offer food. If he starts offering like, oh, well, how about coffee or water, wasting your time, I just don't bother. I personally don't have time for those things. Like, I don't try to convince a guy to take me out on an expensive date. I would just tell him, or even a regular day where it's just dinner, like a regular dinner. It doesn't matter. Like, I don't go out of my way to try to change alcohol to food. Like, if I tell you, unfortunately, I don't drink, and then you're going to offer me water or coffee, I already know. Like, I already know what's up. So I just end the conversation there. Some of you are continuing on these conversations when it's obvious the guy is just not planning to spend any money on you. He's not planning to take, like, he just doesn't really care so much for you, okay? And that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. I've seen crazy, beautiful women who have insanely good pictures on there, and they just have so much game. Like, they're 10 times smarter than I am, and still men will message them asking for a coffee. I'm telling you, these guys will test you. These broke men will still message you, because it is so much easier to message someone online and get a no online than to approach someone in person and get a no in person. So don't get upset if somebody offers you these cheap dates, these coffee dates. Like, people will test you, and you can't blame them. You can't blame them, because they never know. Maybe they can get a girl who looks like $1 million and will say yes to coffee. Not every woman out there knows her worth, so strongly suggest don't do drink dates. Try to do dinner dates. And usually what I do, if I really like, let's say the guy on there was this one case where where this guy, I knew from mutual friends, but he didn't really know me, and I already knew that he came with money, and I knew that he was generous based on like hearing how he dated other women. But he did offer me to go for drinks. What did he suggest? I can't remember. He like suggested like coffee or something. No, I'm sorry. This was during the Corona time, and he suggested hanging out and doing like a picnic with like a bottle of wine or something. And then I messaged him and I said, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that, I misunderstood, I apologize, I thought this was a date, I didn't know you wanted to be just friends. Now, this usually worked for me, and this is not the first time it happened. I remember there was other situations that I can't think off the top of my head, like they were so long ago, but usually if they try to offer me like very like cheap dates where it's like outdoors and like things that I could easily get a guy from, like just walking outside and get a guy to do for me, I would usually try to be like, oh, I'm sorry, I thought I misunderstood, I thought you wanted to be on a date, I didn't realize you wanted to be just friends. That usually changes things for them. Like, usually either they'll be like, I don't see the big deal, like what is the problem with doing a picnic, or they're gonna be like, no, like what do you prefer? No, it was a date, yada yada. Usually that worked for me, and he changed it to a good date. So maybe give that a try. It depends on the situation. I can't remember exactly how the conversation went, but that's a line that I used multiple times, and multiple times it worked. Only one time I got a guy who was like, well, what's the big deal of drinking coffee outside? So, test it out. And now let's say everything worked out, you like the guy, he did everything well, and now you're going on a date with him. My next tip is to send your GPS to a friend. Okay, That's just it's a must. You never know who you're gonna meet online. You never know what they're capable of. I've heard horrible things happening to people. So what I do is before I go on a date is I would send my GPS. You can do it through, depends on whatever you have. I know you can do it on Facebook. You can do it on WhatsApp if you guys use WhatsApp. There's many different apps that you can do. Maybe Find My iPhone. I don't know how good Find My iPhone is. I don't know if it really shows your location. But try to, I know for sure WhatsApp and Facebook does it, and they show like really like where you are. So that's the best way, just in case if anything goes down, if anything happens, if, I don't know, maybe you need to be picked up. Make sure that you send your GPS to somebody that you know, that you trust, so they can like keep an eye out for you and make sure that you're okay. Another tip, if you're like iffy about this guy, you're not sure, not to give him your actual address. So maybe walk down a few blocks to a different address and get him to pick you up from there. Also, what you can do, which is a safer part, like you can easily just, meet him at that date. Like, let's say he chose a restaurant, so you meet him at the restaurant. You don't get him to pick you up. So it really depends, or you get him to send an Uber over to you, but you get it in a different address. So it's probably best for him not to know your address unless you really feel like it's hard to say. It's hard to say who you can really trust or not until you actually meet that person a few times. So up to you and how much you want to make sure that your life is private and this guy doesn't know too much about you, because again, you never know people, you never know what like they're capable of. And honestly, don't think that this is happening only online. Like sometimes even the people who approach you in person can be not the best people in the world. So always put your safety first. If you're gonna get picked up, it's best to do it in a different address. Best to send him a different address. And yeah. Well, I don't know about you ladies, but for me personally, if a guy's picking me up, I can already tell as soon as I walk into the car whether it's going to work or not, or whether there's like some weird vibe. Usually you can like feel off the energy. Not everyone is able to do that, but usually as we talk, like within like a few, even a minute or even less than a minute, I can already tell how I feel about that person. So if I do feel like this guy's a little iffy or a little bit strange, or I'm not like, I don't want to spend time with him, I don't like him, I would switch it up. I would switch up the date. So let's say you guys are going for a restaurant. Usually you're going to be there for like an hour or so. Some people stay even longer. It really depends on how great the conversation goes. But if I really feel like I don't want to see this guy, like I'm like just don't want to be around him. Now, it depends on how brave you are. You can just tell him, hey, you know what, like right on the spot, like I don't feel like this is working. I just prefer to go home. But the problem is that you don't know who that person is and what they're capable of doing if you just leave. Like some people don't. It's so sad that this is even something that people have to go through. But some guys, if you tell them that, it can just easily turn them into anger, and it might not end well. So it really depends on how you feel. Like if you feel like you can, it's hard to say. I personally say, if you like to be safe and if you're worried about like just leaving the car, I would say switch up the date to a coffee date. So tell him, hey, you know what? I kind of ate. I'm not so hungry. How about we do coffee instead? I really want coffee. I would love to have something warm. Coffee date is going to be so much easier on you. Coffee date is like less than an hour. You're sitting there. You can just pretend, be nice. I'm so sorry that it's even something that somebody has to go through, because it's not okay. Like I feel like personally, if you just don't like the person, you should be able to just leave. But I also understand this kind of situations where you're really creeped out by that person and you don't know what they're gonna do if you show that you're not interested. So if it's a must, or if you're just the type of person who has to be nice and coffee date's the best way. Get them to go to there's plenty of coffee places all over, so just go for coffee, pretend to be nice, pretend to like him. And it's so not fair that you even have to do that, but if you're in that situation, go for the coffee, drink that coffee, and then, be nice once he takes you home, or get a cab, even better. And just leave, and like never, like, even if you message him, just tell him like, hey, like, you don't even need to message him. Honestly, just try to make sure that you just get home safely. That is the biggest thing. Make sure that you get home safely. And if you're worried of how he's going to react, coffee date, switch it from restaurant to coffee date. The date is just going to end sooner and you'll get home. That's it. What matters is that you get home safely. Now, hopefully, you're not in that situation, and let's say you're on a date, you guys are sitting down, about to order your food. Get him to do most of the talking. Ladies, some of you blab like crazy and tell a guy your whole personal life, your whole story. And in my opinion, and I've definitely done this mistake before, I'm not a perfect human being. I've done this definitely in my early 20s. There's nothing worse than a person knowing all these like personal things about you and they're no longer in your life. Like that is something that bothers me the most, so I make sure I don't do that anymore. Let him talk about himself. Let him expose himself. Figure out what he's trying to brag about. The things he's telling you are the things he's trying to brag about. And you can easily make him talk about himself more. It's so easy. Let's say you guys are talking about countries that you've traveled to, and he tells you that he's been to Italy, and then he starts talking about Italy. You ask him, how is Italy? How are the people there? Maybe he's starting to talk to you about food, and he says some kind of food that I don't care if you already know this food or it's a food that you don't know. You ask him about this food. Oh, what does that taste like? Easily. It's so easy. Whatever they talk about, you can easily like take those little words and twist it and make it into a question. Even if you know that, like the answer to that question, just ask anyway. Obviously don't ask something like extremely stupid, but like, just, like don't be like, oh, well, what language do they speak in Italy? Like, don't ask that. But like, ask about food. That's interesting. Oh, what are the people like? And what areas have you been in? And how long have you been in there? Like, let him continue the conversation. Eventually, he's not just going to give you straight answers. Usually they don't give you just straight an answer like, I've been there for 2 weeks. End of conversation. Usually they say, oh yeah, I've been there in 2 weeks and I got to be in this city and this city and this city and we got to do this. Like they will continue on the conversation with other things added onto it. And those other things that they add to it, you start asking questions about those things too. Basically just act like you're so interested in what he has to say and let him talk about himself. This is how a guy thinks he has chemistry with you. He talks about himself the whole time and he's like, oh my gosh, me and this girl, we have so much chemistry. That is how most of them usually become obsessed. Now, okay, maybe I over-exaggerated, but that's usually how they catch those feelings. Is they talk about themselves, and the reason why they catch feelings when they talk about themselves is because we know ourselves more than anything else. Doesn't matter how many times you've watched nature documentaries, you know yourself better than anything else. So when people talk about themselves, that is how they start connecting to you more. And this goes towards everyone. So let him talk about himself. Let him brag about himself. Let him get cocky if he wants to. And just, add in those little questions, even if you know the answers to them. That way, he's going to expose himself even more. He's going to, even in the end, like, tell him, like, oh my gosh, like, I had so much fun listening to your story or listen to you blab about this and that. Don't say the word blab. And just tell him that you learned so much from him. Like, you learned so much. He's going to be like, oh my gosh. Like, that is going to make him basically want to talk even more. Because he's like, oh, well, she said that she's learning from me. So he's going to try to impress you in that way by, like, just talking and talking and talking. And you can just sit back and just listen and let him do the talking. And eventually he's going to get very, very comfortable that he's going to start exposing who he is as a person. And of course, if he starts asking you, because you don't want to make it sound like it's an interview, right? Like you don't want him to feel like he's in a job interview where you're just asking him all the questions all the time. But yeah, if he asks you questions, like if he says, I don't know, I can't think of I should have wrote this down. But let's say he asks you something, don't give him a straight answer. Like try to add a little bit to it and then turn it back to him. And make it like more of a question where he has a longer time to answer. Basically try to like answer it and make it sound like you're also engaging in the conversation. And then let him talk about himself. Yeah. Now listen, and this is obvious. Every man out there, their end goal is to get sex from you. This is why I tell you to act super interested, because the more you act interested, the closer they think basically sex is around the corner. Because when you act super interested and you're really engaging in what they have to say, they're like, oh yeah, I'm the man. She wants this. I'm getting close to it. I know I'm gonna get it. Like you let him get. That's why I'm saying let him get cocky. Let him think that you're just so interested that you just can't help it. You could just lay there for hours listening to him. Okay. Um, they get annoying. I'm sorry, they really do. But this is like, and I'm just telling you how to get a guy more obsessed. You can try to, like, you can do your way, but I'm just telling you my way, and this is how it works for me. So that's why you act super interested in person, because then they start thinking, oh, I'm definitely going to get sex around the corner. You don't have to have sex with him. He literally, a man becomes obsessed because you're feeding him this little grain of salt, of hope, basically. Let's say little grain of hope that, oh my gosh, sex is around the corner. So that is what you do. You literally make him think, she's so interested in me. I know I'm going to get it. I know I'm going to get it. So let him think that way. Don't start, overdoing it with like all these sexual talks and sending nudes when he didn't even ask you to. That is so just, no. I'm teaching you more of how to get a guy more long term. And I know that you guys told me to read this book. What was it called? I think it was Hoe Tactics or something, where it said like you have to be all sexual with a guy and yada yada. This works more if you want to be a sugar baby. The chances of this working and becoming a wife, I don't know. I don't know. If somebody out here actually tried this and became a wife, please let me know. And I really have receipts, please, because I'm not just going to believe anyone telling me that this works. I personally don't think this works. I've remember talking to a few guys about it who come with money and asking if this would work. And I don't know. It's hard to ask guys because they're like, oh, this wouldn't work on me. So they're also not the best person to ask. But I personally say keep it classy and make a man earn that trust before you actually sleep with him. You will know when to sleep with him because you will truly feel that this guy just isn't going anywhere. The more he spends his money, time, and energy on you, the harder it is for him to leave. So let him have this hope of, oh, sex is going to be around the corner. Who cares? Let him have that hope. But I honestly, if you read that Hoe Tactic book, it's a great book. It will definitely work. It just depends on your goal. I don't believe that it's going to make you into a wife. I personally strongly don't believe it. If somebody out here did this and became a wife, please let me know and please come with receipts and I will be very impressed. I will even delete this video. Next is when the bill comes. Do not ask to pay half or tell him, do you want to pay half? Do not. He asked you on a date. He took you on this date. He told you, I want to take you on this date. Why would you pay? Why? What kind of a woman? No, really, like in your right mind, and I'm not trying to put anyone down. You're going on a date, so you're going to make sure that you shower. You're going to shave. You're going to put on makeup. You're going to have your nails done. You're going to put a nice outfit on. You're going to put your perfume on. There's just your body lotion, everything. Like, I'm not going to go all in detail. Everything costs money. Every little detail from your face to like from head to toe costs money. And not only are you going out of your way to do all of that, you're also going to pay for yourself. Like, what was the point of you even being on this date? You could have literally just been sitting with your PJs watching Netflix and eating, I don't know, ice cream. What was the point? I honestly do not understand. And even women who do pay 50-50, wow, thank you. That 50% that you paid, he spent on me while we were on a date. So thank you. Really, it's stupid. And I honestly am so tired of even having this conversation. Stop feeling sorry. He took you on a date because he thought you were worth going on a date with. You guys talked and you guys had a good conversation. Keep your mouth shut. When he gets, the bill or whatever, or even before the bill comes, smile at him. Be like, wow, thank you so much for taking me on this date. I really had a great time. I'm actually surprised we got along so well. You were so interesting. I learned so much from you. And continue on the conversation from there. The bill comes. You smile. Or don't smile. You just look. And you don't say anything. Let him take the bill. Let him take the bill. Do not ask to pay half, okay? Do not tell him that you're willing to pay half if he suggests paying half. If he suggests paying half. Either pay the half, or if you don't want to, Then you tell him, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't bring it. I didn't bring my wallet. I thought this was a date." Or tell him that you forgot your wallet, whatever it is that you're comfortable with. I do not care. It is so stupid for the amount of effort that women put on like dates and everything. And on top of that, men go on different dates with other women too, okay? You're not special. You're not special. He met you, he liked you, and he's gonna date other women to see if he can find better. So, like, what was the point of paying that 50% when he's gonna go use it and maybe spend the whole thing on another woman? Does that actually make you feel good that you paid half? Meanwhile, for another woman who kept her mouth shut, he paid the full bill? Don't do that to yourself. Really, like, if he says, let's pay half, I personally, like, I honestly don't have an issue with paying half. I don't care. I would literally just pay half and I would never talk to him again. But if you don't want to pay half, don't. You don't have to. I'm all for that. Be like, I didn't bring my money. I didn't bring my wallet. I don't care. Don't and if you go that route with like I didn't bring my wallet, yada yada, don't promise him that you're gonna pay him back. Oh, if you pay for me, I'll pay you back. Don't promise him anything. Let him pay. And honestly, from that situation, listen, if a guy likes you, even if he's broke, he will pay for the full thing. Okay? Some are very cheap and some will try to, split. Don't trust those men. I promise you, honey. Why, from a first date, if a guy pays half, goes half with you, do you really think, like, how do you think you could even, like, if you're thinking long term, how do you really think he's going to be as a husband? On the first date, he made you pay half. Do you really think he's going to take care of you when you have a child? These things are done on purpose, from what kind of a date a guy is willing to take you to, how he acts on a date, what he talks about, whether he's willing to be generous and spend money. This is things that women do to test out men, whether they are good for the future, like as a husband. Because if a guy doesn't even do that for you in the beginning, how do you think he's going to be when you have children? Like, really, I'm so frustrated with hearing women telling me that they just can't, like, they just feel uncomfortable when the bill comes. Why are you feeling uncomfortable? You literally look 10 times, you're doing him and, like, literally, you're there looking so good. You had a great conversation. If a guy truly wanted to impress you and he wanted you for the long term, he's going to pay. That is just how it is. That is how he proves himself. Like, I'm really into you and this was great. Thank you for your time. He asked you to go on the date, so he's paying. Period. I don't want to hear anything else done. Like, that is just how it is. And honestly, yeah, I have nothing else to say about that. It just frustrates me that there's even guys out there who have the nerve to ask to pay. I can understand if he's on a date with a girl who is a complete catfish, doesn't look anything like her pictures, and she was just, I don't know, wearing, like, she just looks like a man. Then maybe I can understand. If you look like a man, okay, yeah, I can understand how he has the nerve to ask you to pay. But if you look like a woman, I don't understand how a guy could honestly even the word "let's split" come out of his mouth. Like, that is just insane to me. Oh, wow. And I actually remember this one story that this happened to me. And this is how I learned my lesson. Is I remember I was going on a date and the date went so well. Okay, this date went so well. And I knew he was interested and I knew he would not make me split half because I just knew, like, I knew I had him. But I was so, like, I remember this is like, I was so dumb. This is a while ago. And when I was on the date and the bill came, I don't know why, but it just came out of my mouth. And I was like, okay, like I pulled out my card. I'm like, you want to split half? And he looked at me crazy. He's like, what? Like, he was like, I would never make a woman pay. Like, what? Like, he looked so, like, he literally, you could tell that he was so offended. And I knew he wouldn't make me pay. So I didn't care. I pulled out the card. But it was so stupid because he was like, he looked at me and he asked me, he's like, do you pay half with other men? That is also so stupid of you, because if you tell him, let's split half, he's gonna think that this is what you do on other dates too. Like, why? Like, that is why you just look and smile. Because he'll be like, okay, she probably goes on dates with other men, and obviously look at her. What kind of a man is gonna make her pay for anything? That, oh my gosh, that, I can't believe I forgot to add that in. It's a good thing I added it now. 100%. That is like, I'm just so annoyed with myself that I even put myself in that situation, that I even said it. That was so embarrassing when he asked me that. He's like, do other men make you pay half? He was just so confused and so shocked that I even asked if he wants to go half, because I looked good, guys. I looked so good. Like I had my skirt. It was nice. My whole body was like, you could really see the shape. Okay, you could see my curves. I had like the a slit going on, It was I looked like a classy, half classy, half sexy. Like I looked so good that night. Literally, I'm telling you, when I walked in, like I had everyone's eyes on me. I knew that I looked good, and I was so confident, and that's why I didn't like care. I was like, oh, whatever. I'm gonna look like I'm just such a nice person offering to go half. Stupid. Really, I feel so stupid for doing that, and I'm so happy because afterwards he forgot about that. But like in general, if you do say let's go half, most likely they will think like, okay, when she goes on dates with other men, they make her pay half, or this is just something that she does. She just pays half. From my experience, I've noticed the ones. Okay, let's say the check comes, he's gonna pay. If he looks at the check for way too long, and I'll tell you how you know if he's looking for well, if he's looking at the check for way too long. If he's looking at the check and it's to the point where you just feel so uncomfortable that he's still looking at the check, it means he's looking at it for way too long. That those men always are cheap. They're just such a waste of time, and they're usually not generous. Like I know men who are willing to pay on the first date, second date, and then by the third date they're gonna be like, well, we need to go split half. We've already like been on like 3 days, even on the fourth date. For you to know for sure whether you and this guy are compatible, it takes, I would say fourth date, but to be 100% sure, usually by the fifth date. Okay. So that is how you usually know, from the fifth date, because that's already a lot of dates, and you can really tell who the person is by then. So 5 dates. But yeah, if he looks at the check for way too long, he's most likely cheap. He most likely does not like the price, or he's trying to literally make sure they didn't make any mistakes, so he can like tell the waiter like, oh, we didn't order this and we didn't order that. So definitely have an eye on that. And also, when he pays, if the receipt comes back and then he looks over the receipt, cheap. I'm telling you, even if you paid on the date and let's say the date was quite expensive, it's gonna come to you. Give it another date or two, you're gonna start realizing this guy is cheap. So if he looks at the receipt for too long, usually I'm telling you, guys who are generous and they're rich and they actually have money, they don't even want the receipt. They'll get it. They don't even bother looking at it. They just don't care. So I'm telling you right now, if he looks at the receipt for too long, red flag. And now to finish things up, I'm just gonna give you some reminders depending on your goal. Okay, this is more for like getting a guy more long term. I strongly suggest avoid going to their house as much as possible. Like it's so easy. Come on, ladies. I'm so tired of women asking me, how do I how do I tell him that I don't want to have sex, or how do I avoid having like, do you not remember how like all the guys that you wanted to friend zone, how you would avoid having sex with them? Come on, it's so simple. So please, I'm not putting anyone down. I also understand, like I get it. Like if you really like the guy and you already wanna, it's just sit back and just think it over, okay? It's really not that difficult. So don't go to their house. You can easily tell them, I'm just not yet. I'm not comfortable yet. But show them that you're so interested. If literally you don't need to go out of your way and act super sexual. Them seeing that you're interested in them is enough for them to think that sex is around the corner. It's enough to keep them around. So honestly, try to avoid the house as much as possible until you feel like it's a good time. So you know when it's a good time, okay? Don't let your emotions get in the way. Don't go straight to their house. Try to actually like make them build up that connection and invest time and energy and money in you. Obviously, don't sleep with them too soon. That's an obvious one. I don't need to explain why. I hope you guys already know why. And also, like, dates at late hours, I'm just not about that, especially if it's the first date. Like, if it's the first date and he's asking you to go out on a date at like 11 p.m. at night, why? Like, it's usually guys who ask you to go out on a date at such a late hour always come with bad intentions. You should go during the day, and I would say the max I feel like you should just be home by 9 p.m. Honestly, it depends on you. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm just saying usually if it's a very late hour, and you will not feel comfortable with that hour, so don't go. Don't go. Tell him this won't work for me. I prefer during this time. And let him take you on a date during that time. If he wants you, I do not care how busy he is. I am telling you, even if he's a businessman who works 24/7, if he wants to see you, if he sees that there's something, if he sees that you and him could be something, there could be something, he will make time. He will. So don't go a super late hour. Late hours should be more when you're like really comfortable with him. You will know when you're comfortable with him. And yeah, so I feel also if you're not on the same mindset, if you're looking more for long term and you realize like this is the guy, like let's say you want children and he tells you he hates children, don't think that you're so special and you're gonna change him. You can't change anybody, okay? You can only change yourself. So you're never gonna be able to change him, okay? He might lie to you if you start telling him like, oh, this is what I want. I'm a traditional woman and I want a man to have kids with and raise a beautiful family. He might play onto that fantasy even if he doesn't want to have kids and that's just absolutely not what he wants to do. He'll play onto that fantasy to convince to get you to get comfortable and then get laid and then he'll leave you. So honestly, don't let them play into that fantasy. Don't tell them what you want. Let them think that you're this open woman who just goes with the flow, and let him tell you himself what he wants, okay? Let him get comfortable, let him expose himself, let him talk about himself, let him expose himself and then decide if it's for you. And yeah, honestly, if you're looking for long term, don't ever think that you're going to be able to change him. You won't. And honestly, I think that's it. I think I've mentioned everything. So yeah, ladies, thank you so much for listening. I hope that something from here you've learned, or in general, like just I'm so happy to still have you guys around. And ladies, you have been so supportive. Like I'm absolutely so happy when I'm getting like DMs and you guys are telling me like feedback about, things that should be fixed, changed, topics to talk about, and what you liked. So really, I appreciate it. And yeah, love you all.